If you've ever written a function in Python, then you can extend the capability of Claude by giving it that function. Claude is an LLM, and it maybe struggles with some kind of basic things that humans will be able to do very well. So let's say I have a string that's like SSSSS. Let's copy this. So this is something that it will never have seen before. This string. And then I can ask how many times does the letter S appear in the previous string. And let's see what it says. So it says that it appears 108 times. So let's see whether this is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some Python code to test this. So let's say the string is equal to what we just had. This is sort of a list comprehension, so just a fairly straightforward way of counting the characters. If C equals S. So the correct answer is 111, actually. So Claude was close, but not quite. Let's say I really needed this functionality in Claude, so I can make a function called countChars, and let's just copy this across, and let's change this to character, and this to text. So this is going to return the sum. And now what I want to do is I want to add this to Claude. So what I'm going to do is use something called the MCP. So this is the Model Context Protocol. And what this will do is expose this function to Claude. So if Claude encounters a task where it needs to use the MCP, then it'll be able to do that. So to add this to Claude, I'm going to look at the documentation. I just need to know what I need to import. So let's copy this. So I've edited my Claude config and added this entry for the MCP server that does this countChars. So you have to quit Claude and start again. So let's open Claude, and then now let's try and run this. So now I have to allow it to use the countChars. So Claude is using the code that I've given it. And then it'll get the right answer. So it'll say that it appears 111 times. So this is a silly example, but it's really very easy to add extra functionality onto these LLMs using these MCP servers. Like if you've ever written a function in Python, then you can extend the capability of Claude by giving it that function. And this is why people are getting really excited about this Model Context Protocol. So recently there's been something developed called Manus, which uses this functionality and makes it a tool that a lot of people are excited about. So what Manus does is that if you give it a task, it'll plan how it's going to perform that task and then write its own code that it can then execute. So basically what it's doing is it's writing its own MCP server and then running the code on the thing that it's written. But then you might say, why bother being interested in writing these own MCP servers when, you could just get AI to do it, and then, we could just wait until writing this code is going to be automated by the LLMs. I mean, that could be the case, but there is still the chance that these LLMs will make a mistake when running these MCP servers. Also, from a kind of efficiency point of view, it's a bit of a waste of time to wait for Manus to implement the MCP server if you're going to be kind of doing a repeated task a lot. So, if you know that you want to perform this particular task over and over again, then it makes a lot more sense to write your own MCP server, or at least have some way of caching the thing that Manus has written. So that's another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is a thing that I've been developing for this, and it's kind of an interesting idea, I think. And that is that we can use these MCP servers to give LLMs sort of a memory of what they're doing. So something that I've been kind of interested in on this channel is an idea of a zettelkasten framework. And I've been thinking for a while about, how can I use, say, AI systems with this zettelkasten? And so recently I've been thinking about, as a sort of personal tool for me, how would I want AI to improve the zettelkasten? But I think a better thing to think about is that, what if we give an LLM a way of sort of organizing its own knowledge. So let's make Claude a maintainer of a zettelkasten for itself. And so, if everyone had a personal assistant with its own sort of memory, so this would be like giving a brain, giving a sort of second brain to your LLMs, then it can sort of remember a lot and be a much more effective tool. For example, from a research perspective, what you could do is you could give the LLM, if you're reading a paper or whatever, you can give this paper to the LLM and get it to sort of ingest that knowledge and then relate it to other things that it's already read. So at the moment, there are tools like Google's Notebook LM, but really what this does is you just give it a load of information and then it sort of reads it all, and then you can ask questions about it. But the AI hasn't really understood what it's reading. Whereas if you have an AI that's in charge of its own zettelkasten, its own sort of second brain, then you can give it tasks to make sure that it's actually understood the things that it's reading and link it to other things that it's read and do some interesting thinking. Whereas if you just give ChatGPT or you give Notebook LM a load of stuff, then you can ask it questions about it and it will, do things in a fairly basic way, but it won't have really, it won't really understand what it's talking about. But if you have a system where, the LLM is maintaining its own network of knowledge, then this could be a much more powerful way of, using LLMs. So this is kind of something that's really interesting about the zettelkasten framework, is that it's a way that humans can organize their knowledge, but we could also give it to LLMs and see what they can come up with. These kind of digital note-taking techniques, like using Obsidian and stuff, one of the main reasons for using them is that they're human readable. You have like raw text files that are human readable and linked to each other in easy ways, easy to understand. Because we make these files really easy to understand from a human level, it's also really easy for an AI to understand them and manipulate them. And so, what I'm going to be working on over the next few weeks is trying to get Claude to manage its own zettelkasten. And so you could do things like, whenever you chat to Claude, it always remembers what it said. And then, if you ask it something new, it can look back on the previous chats and see what's going on. So at the moment, it doesn't do that because, there's just loads of text in your conversations. But if you have a system where, you have a conversation with Claude, then it processes the conversation and puts it into its own sort of knowledge database. Then when you chat to it again, it can then look up, it can then search through its knowledge database and see if there's anything relevant that it should know to then bring up in this new chat. In the same way that if you've spoken to someone yesterday and then you speak to them again today, they're going to know that you've spoken to them on both days. The same should be true for, if you wanted to have a digital assistant. And so one potential way of doing that is to have a memory system that's managed by the LLM. And so, I think this could be a really interesting thing that is really quite straightforward to implement because of how easy it is to write these MCP servers. And so that's just one thing that I've been thinking about, but, you probably have some interesting use cases that you can think of. So I would recommend just playing around and writing these MCP servers. So I'll probably make some more videos about this if this project works well. So thanks for watching and maybe consider subscribing if you're interested.